There's some really big news here with the Mets in their front office. Here's from MetsMerizedOnline.com. Report. Mets add Chris Gross, Andy Green to front office. Mets have hired Cubs bench coach Andy Green to a senior role for player development, according to Joel Sherman of the New York Post, which is interesting. Green went to the University of Kentucky and he was drafted by the Arizona Diamondbacks in the 24th round of the 2000 Major League Baseball draft. He bounced between the minors and the majors, had a one-year stint in Japan, and then finished his career as a Met in 2009. Since 2011, Green has been a coach in the majors. He once again worked his way through the minors, this time as a manager, and won back-to-back Southern League Manager of the Year awards in 2013 and 2014. Green was rewarded for his success. He was named the Padres manager before the start of the 26th season. Unfortunately, Green oversaw rebuilding Padres teams and lasted as the Padres manager from 2016 to 2019, where he compiled a 274-366 record. After being fired in 2019, Green was hired by the Cubs as a bench coach before the 2020 season. Before his hiring, Green was also interviewed by the Guardians for another position. Mets have tabbed Chris Gross, the current scouting director for the Houston Astros, as their new vice president of amateur scouting, according to Joe Doyle. Gross has spent the last 12 seasons working in Houston, including the previous 5 as their scouting director. In the 12 years in Houston, Gross worked first as a regional cross-checker, then a national cross-checker, and eventually his most recent role as scouting director. Gross broke into baseball in 2009 as a regional scout for the Cardinals. Gross worked with the new Mets president of baseball operations for 3 years, from the fall of 2012 to the fall of 2015, before Stearns left the Astros for the Brewers. In his time in Houston, the Astros have drafted and developed several All-Stars. However, specifically in his time as scouting director, the Astros have drafted Hunter Brown, Colin Barber, Spencer Argetti, Jacob Melton, Bryce Matthews, and current Mets prospects Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford. Gross will slot into the Mets scouting department that has undergone significant changes over the last few years. Mark Tremuta left the Mets to return to the Blue Jays earlier in the winter. Former scout Chad McDonald, who personally scouted and drafted Brandon Nimmo, departed the team for personal reasons, along with 3 veteran scouts who were let go by Stearns. Gross is the first major office hire of the Stearns administration. Mets have several front office openings, including some high-profile positions, such as the vacant Director of Player Development. Now, he is from MLB Trade Rumors. Mets hire Andy Green in player development role. Mets have hired Andy Green for a senior role in their player development department, according to Joel Sherman of the New York Post. Earlier today, Sherman reported that Green had been fired from his previous job as the Cubs bench coach, but Sherman corrected himself by saying that Green wasn't fired, but that he turned down the Cubs' offer to remain as bench coach or in another job in the organization. This isn't the first link between Green and the Mets this winter, as it seems likely that the groundwork for his hiring was laid when Green interviewed for New York's managerial opening a few weeks ago. Though the Mets opted to hire Carlos Mendoza as their new skipper, obviously the club liked Green enough to still want him within the organization. With Craig Counsell unexpectedly supplanting David Ross as Chicago's new manager, Green might have decided it was also time for a change, as Green's stint as bench coach coincided with Ross's 4-year tenure as Wrigleyville manager. Green is no stranger to the Big Apple, as his last 3 seasons as a player were spent in the Mets organization, including his last 4 MLB Big League games in 2009. Upon retirement, he became a manager in the Diamondbacks farm system and then Arizona's third base coach for the 2015 season. Green was then hired to be the Padres manager, while initially overseeing a rebuilding San Diego club. It remains to be seen if this player development job could lead to a new career path for the 46-year-old Green, or he'll eventually look to return to an on-field role. Green's managerial aspirations obviously haven't left him, given his interviews with both the Mets and the Guardians within the last 2 months. Now, finally, in this video, just to sort of give you just a sort of broader view and just more of a closer view what's going on with the situation I have from SNY.TV. Mets adding Andy Green, Chris Gross to front office. Green spent the past 4 years as the Cubs bench coach. New president of baseball operations David Stearns continues to put his imprint on the organization, as the Mets are hiring Andy Green and Chris Gross to the front office, according to multiple reports. Green served as the Chicago Cubs bench coach under manager David Ross and was offered another position in the organization after Ross's firing, but decided to join the Mets in a senior role of player development, according to the New York Post. Gross would come to New York as the vice president of amateur scouting after spending the past 12 years with the Houston Astros, serving as director of amateur scouting for the past 3 seasons. Green served as the bench coach with the North Siders for the past 4 seasons. Before that, he was the manager of the San Diego Padres from 2016 until 2019. Green had an interesting record with the National League West club. He also reportedly interviewed for the Mets' open managerial position, which was later filled by Carlos Mendoza. During his playing days, Green made 4 of his 140 big league appearances with the Mets in 2009. He began his coaching career in the minors in 2012 before serving as the third base coach with the Diamondbacks, the club he began his big league career with. In his most recent role with the Astros, Gross oversaw the domestic scouting department, and since joining Houston's scouting staff, the club has produced 58 players via the draft, more than any other organization. In Houston, Gross served as West Coast supervisor, national supervisor, and domestic scouting supervisor. After playing 3 seasons in the Cubs minor league system, Gross began his scouting career in the St. Louis Cardinals front office. So we got some very interesting guys. These are names that we'd not heard of. Now, obviously, with David Stearns coming in, we're now starting to see people wanting to work for the Mets now. I don't know what the issue was. Maybe it's because there's so many Wilpon people in here, or maybe the fact that Stearns has a great reputation, and he's gotten rid of so much dead weight, not only on the 40-man roster, but in the minor league system, and of course in the front office. So this is great news, and hopefully they keep it up. And thank you for watching this video. Hit that subscribe button. I want to get to 1,000 subs by the end of this year, and hopefully you'll subscribe. And thank you, and I'll see you later.